What's up, guys? Nick Whalen here with Alex Barutha. You're listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Pod. It is Monday, February 26th. We'll recap all the big news from the weekend, talk about the Trae Young injury, what that means for fantasy. Some of the players were concerned about getting shut down late in the year, and we'll tell you about some big trades in some of our important leagues down the stretch. More RotoWire coming your way next. Welcome into the show, Nick Whalen. He's Alex Barutha, talking NBA for the next hour or so. We will take live viewer and listener questions, so put those in the chat. As always, we'll hit those over the second half of the pod. Alex, we're now entering our first full week out of the All-Star break. Kind of a weird one, with play resuming on Thursday. Some leagues, you could set a separate lineup for the weekend. Other leagues carry over to essentially the lineup that you had in there, for the half week going into the break. Anything major for you coming out of the weekend? Any trades, any free agent pickups, any notable developments in any leagues?
I would say nothing major, just, the biggest news, I think, in terms of the fantasy sphere being that Tre Young is going to miss at least a month, they said. But I won't be surprised.
Reevaluated in a month, which is
he could be done for the year, to be honest. Yep. That would not surprise me at all. And the reality is a lot of people's fantasy seasons are going to end, some people's before April. So, if you have Tre Young in your team, check when your league ends, and it might make sense to drop him.
I think in almost any case, it makes sense to drop him. Especially, if you're in head-to-head leagues, those are the ones that tend to end a little bit sooner. Obviously, it depends, league to league. When your season ends, like for example, our like the NFBKC league, the RotoWire Stake League, those go through game 82. So in that situation, if you have an IR spot, maybe you throw him in there, and you're hoping that you get those 2 weeks from him at the end of the year. To me, it depends partially on league size as well. Like if you're in a 10-team league, like there's players out there that are going to be producing for you. If you're in a 16-team league, dropping him to pick up, I don't know, like Kyle Lowry or Ben Mathurin or something, and you're like, yeah, that's a little bit more unappealing. But yeah, I think in general, we're going to see a wave of Tre Young drops, and probably rightfully so. Again, he's going to be reevaluated in 4 weeks. So we're talking end of March for the reevaluation. At that point, I would say it's more often than not that we get an updated timetable and it becomes week to week, or more optimistically day to day after that. But I think the important thing to keep in mind is they're not saying he will be back in 4 weeks. They're saying we'll see where he's at in 4 weeks.
Right. Atlanta, they're in the final play-in spot right now, sitting at 25 and 32 in the East. It's conceivable they just stay there because they're above Brooklyn, who has 21 wins, and obviously they're going nowhere fast.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
So they might end up just being locked into the play-in, and even if they try to essentially tank the season away without Tre Young, it's like I don't even know if it's something they can feasibly do.
No, not really. I don't. They're kind of stuck, right? I think the big winner here is the Chicago Bulls, who now feel great about accomplishing their goal of being the 9th best team in the Eastern Conference and losing in the play-in. So congrats to the Bulls. This should all but lock that up. But yeah, Atlanta versus Brooklyn the rest of the season is going to be a really sad race to see who wants it more, I guess, or maybe who doesn't want it the least for that 10 seed. To me, Brooklyn, I think Brooklyn's trying to win. Their first round pick is going to Houston no matter what. That's completely unprotected. So there's no real draft implications. There's no reason that Brooklyn would want to, try to find their way into the bottom 10 or something because they have a protected pick. Like that's gone. So I don't think we can really expect the Nets to take a step back. The question is, are they actually good enough in the post Jacque Vaughn era to catch the Atlanta Hawks? And who knows? The Nets have been maybe the most confusing team for me night to night. We did see the Hawks, win in pretty impressive fashion without Tre Young last night at home against Orlando, 109-92. DeJounte Murray played well, almost a triple-double for him. We saw Jalen Johnson put up a 21, 10, and 7. I think one of the big winners fantasy-wise will, of course, be Bogdanovic as well.
Yeah, Bogdanovic had a nice game. Move into the starting lineup. I won't be surprised if he averages, like 17, even close to 20 points per game. But they got other guys in the lineup. And then in terms of guys who weren't playing that have been inserted into the lineup, 17 minutes of Garrison Matthews, 11 minutes of Kobe Buffkin. who it's like, yeah, get Kobe Buffkin out there. You drafted the guy. My God. But Matthews is just going to be out there. He's not a position to position match for Trae Young. But the fact is, Murray slides to point guard. Bogdanovich can handle the ball a little bit. They don't need another playmaker out there necessarily.
Yeah, I think other than Chicago, the other winners, are whoever falls furthest out of Philly, Indy, Miami, and Orlando, because two of those teams in all likelihood are going to be in the play-in. And, then you're looking at, potential matchup with a team like Chicago, or, I think you'd probably rather play Brooklyn than Atlanta, because I would guess if Atlanta finds a way to make the play-in, Trae Young's probably back, by the time we're talking late April. But yeah, I think the bottom of that play-in picture in the Eastern Conference is now setting up pretty well if you end up as a 7 or the 8 seed. So the plan's coming together for the Miami Heat. But yeah, that's the big news coming out of the weekend. I mean, we can just go back to the same update we have on LaMelo Ball, which is that he's still not back. He's still day to day. He did practice coming out of the break. That seems like a step in the right direction. At this point, I'm almost hoping he doesn't come back. I'm still holding him in one league where it just doesn't make sense to drop him. I have an IR spot. It's not going to end up mattering regardless, but I want to see more Tre Mann. And this Charlotte team has actually been, I wouldn't say fun to watch, but they've been a better product over the last games. They've won 4 out of 5. They won like the ugliest game of the year. I really hope you did not watch this like I did last night, Alex. This was a 93-80 win over the Portland Trailblazers, who scored 34 points at halftime. 34 points. Portland was 3 of 32 from 3.
You might be on some sort of like list for watching this game. The league, the NBA should like give you a free year of league pass just for even tuning into this game for any stretch. But yeah, I mean, the Hornets, I don't know how they're making things happen. Grant Williams didn't even play well. Somehow they're going to win without Grant Williams taking 4 threes.
Yeah, they're going into a tougher part of their schedule coming up here, so we'll see if this could continue. They play the Bucks back-to-back games. They got to play at Philly, but they have a matchup versus Orlando coming up, and they have a tough finish to their schedule as well. So, not really a whole lot of reason for overall optimism with the Hornets, but like what we're seeing out of Brandon Miller, I think that's been one of the, if you're kind of scratching and clawing for high points this season, the fact that he started to come on, he had 17 points on 18 shots, albeit yesterday against Portland. I do want to gloat for a second, Alex. I had like the all-time stream yesterday. I had to drop, I think I dropped Dennis Schroeder in a league, and I just needed one fill-in. And my options were very limited. It was for like the later games yesterday. I'm like, screw it. I'll grab Nick Richards. 21-10, 3 blocks, 2 steals.
Yeah, Richards, man. It was a Richards versus Ayton showdown. Yeah, he's kind of a lot of people, if you pick Nick Richards up on the wrong week, he'll get you like 7 points, 9 rebounds average. Yeah. And then if you pick him up, during the stretch that you're kind of talking about, so you could also give you 15 and 12. But yeah, he continues to be just like a solid option for them, as Mark Williams seemingly will never come back, as was jokingly predicted on the show by me when he was downgraded from doubtful to out.
Yeah. That was like mid-December that you said that. That's looking pretty good right now. I made a couple big trades this weekend in the RotoWire Stake League where I need to move up like 3 spots to get into the top half of the league. This is the league where you just want to be in the top half, 16 teams. You want to be in the top 8. The bottom half of the league has to pay for a very expensive steak dinner plus drinks for the top half of the league. So I'm a little bit in desperation mode here. I finally offloaded Jaren Jackson. We've been talking about it for over a month at this point. I'm still concerned about a shutdown. Traded him to our guy Kirian, who was on the pod on Friday. Traded him straight up for Alperen Sengun.
I love that for you. Yeah, I assume Kirian needed blocks. I don't blocks and threes. Maybe I don't know the exact thing. Like if you ask me what I would. Go ahead.
He's doing better in this league. I think he's in 3rd. So he's like, look, I just want upside here. Like Jaren Jackson's the better player when they're both at their peak. And he said he's trying to make a run at, I don't think he can get to number 1, but he could get to number 2 conceivably. Okay. And I wanted the safety of Sengun because I know you could say the Rockets are like, what are they, 12th right now in the West? And, they're not that far ahead of Memphis, but I don't think they're shutting it down. That's another team that, doesn't really have draft pick obligations that you're all that worried about. Like they're sending their first rounder to Oklahoma City, and that's only top 4 protected. So they're not, they're giving that up. They're not going to find their way into the bottom 4. And I just feel better. Like I think Jaren Jackson could be shut down literally any time between now and the end of the season. And I'm also specifically chasing rebounds and field goal percentage. And Jaren Jackson is not helping me in either of those categories right now. So I wanted Sengun. I think it made sense for what I need. The other trade, I sent Malik Monk to our guy Steve Belanda, one of our sales guys, traded Malik Monk for Brook Lopez.
I think that's a pretty fair trade. Monk had that kind of bad stretch during that time that Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes also happened to get hot. That was really bizarre. But now he's back to playing well. Lopez just continues to be Brook Lopez. Like he'll have his 3 rebounds, 7-point performance, but then he'll get 5 blocks here or there. I think on the per game rankings would tell you won this by a lot. But Of course, we're talking about this is, I guess, good context for people listening. It's like we're deep into a roto league where this is the point in the season where you can be like, I'm really weak in this area. I'm really weak in this area. If I bump up here, I can move up a few spots. Like if you're first in threes by a lot, you can just trade 2 3-point shooters away and focus on other categories, even if you lose the fantasy value evaluation.
Yeah. And I'm punting assists in this league. So that was part of the reason that I was okay sending out Malik Monk. Rebounds wise, it's basically a wash. I'd like to think that Brook Lopez being 7'1" would help me there. Not really the case. But it's a boosted field goal percentage. He's actually hitting more threes than Malik Monk. So that, that helps as well. That's another category. And then the other, rebounds and blocks are what I was really after most. So getting the 2.5 to 3 blocks a game out of Brook Lopez down the stretch should be huge. And again, you can always say that there's injury concerns with Lopez. He's been extremely healthy over the last year and a half since the back surgery. But it was a move that I felt like I had to make to try to chase down one of those top 8 spots. In terms of waivers this weekend, I didn't really do much at all. There's most of my leagues are deeper leagues. I mentioned the Nick Richards pickup. That's not going to be long term necessarily. Nobody did anything too notable. Kieran went out and added Royce O'Neal. He had a big game against the Lakers. That's going to be a little bit hit or miss, but I get it. Especially with seemingly somebody out every single night on the wing for the Suns. Cody Martin was picked up. Tumani Kamara was picked up by DJ. He also added Jonathan Isaac, who looks like he's escaped a major injury. We'll see about that. And I thought it was interesting. James Anderson, who's doing well in the Stake League, he lost Trae Young, and I think he also has a Okongwu, so he's kind of hurting right now. He went and picked up Kyle Lowry, which tells you where the reliable guard depth is in some of these deeper leagues.
Yeah, I don't hate the Lowry pickup. I don't. It's just good to pick him up and see what happens. That's all I can say. Like if you lost Trae Young, it's like you gotta get somebody. And Melton is back for Philly, so that that could certainly hurt Lowry once Melton is back to full speed. And but yeah, Lowry's gonna hit some threes for you. He's gonna get some steals for you. But like you said, you're in a 16-team league. Available guards are you may as well just stream at that point. Mm-hmm. Just stream whoever's got 4 games.
Yeah, a couple sympathizers here in the chat. George says, "I can't believe I'm losing the best fantasy player on my team, Trey Young." Our sympathies, George, go out to you and anybody who's rostering Trey Young. I mean, we've said this before, Alex, but really this has been a pretty good season injury-wise, right? Like if you took LaMelo, that was kind of the big one that probably sunk your team if you took him inside the top 15, which most people did, if not higher. But other than that, it's like so many of the guys that I was completely staying away from. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, LeBron, Anthony Davis. It's like, for the most part, a lot of those injury-prone players have had close to best-case season so far.
Yeah, I'm trying to do a quick search here on like games played. Obviously, we have the Embiid situation.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler has missed a decent amount of time, but you're right. I mean, I'm just scrolling through like win shares per 48 and looking at games played. Mobley missed a stretch. Kyrie is in and out always. But you're right. I mean, a lot of these guys on this list have played at least 45 games up to this point, which is exactly the kind of thing that you want coming out of the All-Star break, is they're in place to play 65, which is, as we say, like, that's just what you need. Like, if you get 65 games out of almost anybody in the NBA these days, you can't even be mad about it. You're just like, yeah, it's pretty like average outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at just like the top of the ADP board going back to the beginning of the year. And, obviously you have Trey Young, but we're like 50 plus games into the season. It's a little different when something like this happens late, and obviously, it kills you right before the fantasy playoffs. So I'm not, saying it's not a big deal, but at least you banked a good 2/3 of the season from him. Same with Embiid, brutal. You're probably doing really well in your league if you have Joel Embiid, and now you're just in limbo there. But other than that, I mean, just about everybody who was drafted in like the top 25 to 30 picks has been pretty healthy. LaMelo, of course, would be the other one. It's like there's some guys have underperformed, like Mikal Bridges. That's been a disappointment. Siakam has been a slight disappointment. But you have the guys like Kyrie, even Karl Anthony Towns. It feels like every other year has missed a ton of time. He's been healthy. Markkanen's been healthy. The Celtics guys have all been healthy. Jalen Brunson, DeRozan, even Jaren Jackson, who's been a big injury risk. It's been disappointing for other reasons, but he's been healthy. Zion Williamson, of all people, has stayed healthy.
Yeah. Yep, he has. Bane's missed some time. Ayton overall disappointment, also has missed some time. Simons hasn't been healthy. That's Simons killed me in one league, in our stake league. I had Simons. That was really bad for me because he was projected to be, I think, my best player. And that was bad. But you're right. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to go out on a limb and be like, it's the 65 game rule. That's why everybody's playing now. I think it's just one of those years. It's just, sometimes you get lucky.
So I mentioned trading Jaren Jackson straight up for Sengun. I also sent you an offer in that league, straight up for Jared Allen, and I sent it kind of late, so I don't even know if you saw it necessarily before it expired. But did you consider that one? What was your thought on that as a potential deal?
So I saw it, and then I wasn't like, I was just like, I'm going to bed. Which is what, fair. If anybody sends me like something fantasy related after 10 p.m., I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow.
Yeah, I was in the lab last night.
Yeah, 100% understandable. But I went through the same mindset that probably, like, you and I have talked so much about Jaren Jackson that I'm not going to be that guy who trades for him. No disrespect to you, but I understand why you sent it to me because, if I need help in blocks or threes or something like that, then yeah, I would. It's something I have to consider. But Allen has still been playing too well. Like ever since Mobley went out, Allen's taken a step up, and it hasn't really decreased since Mobley came back. So. I just ultimately wasn't going to do it.
Yeah, James says he just traded Jaren Jackson for Jimmy Butler.
Sure.
I'm fine with that. I mean, obviously Butler's missed so much time that there feels like some risk there, but there's no shutdown risk with Jimmy Butler. I mean, Miami's going to be scratching and clawing to stay out of the play-in. So I like that deal. And if you look at total value, there's like 45 spots between those guys, but I think we know who Jimmy Butler is when he's in there. So I think, getting someone of Jimmy Butler's caliber, Sengun's caliber, for somebody who is as much of a shutdown risk as we believe Jaren Jackson to be, I think that's a totally fine deal. Good question here from George. He says, hey, Nick and Alex, what's up, man? Just lost Trae and Okongwu in a 9-cat 12-team head-to-head. Playoffs start next week, and he'll be either first or second. For his bottom 3 bench spots, he says he's holding Dosunmu and Scoot Henderson. Last spot, should I stream or hold one of the following players? Olynyk, Hunter, or Keyonte George?
Yeah. So Hunter, is that DeAndre Hunter?
I would assume so. It could be RJ Hunter, but probably DeAndre.
Yeah, I mean, DeAndre Hunter is a little more interesting now that Trae Young is out and he's had like, I don't know. I mean, he's double-digit scoring in 7 straight games, which for DeAndre Hunter, that's pretty significant. I don't think you can drop Keyonte. He just has too much upside as like an assist guy. His scoring's been pretty good lately. Olynyk, Olynyk's great per minute, but his role has kind of fluctuated lately. If he can get 20 minutes, eventually he's going to put something together for you. But I wouldn't hate the idea of probably dropping Olynyk to stream other guys in. But what do you think, Nick?
Well, you know what I'm saying. Do you have to roster Scoot? Does he?
Oh, well.
Scoot versus Keyonte George to me, like I think I'd rather have Keyonte George at this point. I know Portland said, yeah, Scoot's going to start the rest of the year, and then he made one start before the break and hasn't played since. So it's not like that's thought to be too long-term of an injury, but he's missed 2 in a row with an adductor. I don't think Scoot is a shutdown risk. We'll talk more about that later in the pod. But yeah, I'm not really thrilled about Olynyk. It's been pretty up and down so far, and what's ultimately a fairly small sample size in Toronto. At most he's going to play like 21, 22 minutes. And you said you're in a 12-team league, so that's a little underwhelming. I think I would hold Dosunmu George, and Hunter. That's where I would lean. But I don't mind streaming either. I mean, if you're going into the playoffs, like, it's pretty nice to have a streaming spot open.
Yeah, George also has a Keyonte or Scoot.
Yeah.
To me, that's pretty close. I mean, Scoot's going to kill you in the turnover category and the field goal percentage category. Like, Keyonte is not a field goal percentage god either, right? He's going to hurt you there, but he at least keeps the turnovers under control. It really just depends. I mean, I hate to like put the onus on people, be like, whether you just believe Scoot's going to be better or not.
Yeah.
Because it's just it ultimately comes down to that, whether you believe it. I don't know if I necessarily believe it. He's made 9 starts since the new year, shooting 35% from the field, 5.6 assists to 3.6 turnovers, 14 points. Like, he can be better. I just don't know.
They're really, really comparable in a lot of ways, especially if you just look at the last month when Scoot started to play a little bit better. But I think it's a debate for sure. And, part of it is maybe what you need. Like, Keyonte George is going to give you, I think, more consistent steals. Like you said, he's going to be better field goal percentage wise. And we're talking like 42% versus 37%. So it kind of depends how much that matters to you. I do think Scoot has more assists upside, right? That's part of it. And Keyonte George is going to give you more threes as well. Scoot, still not a very good 3-point shooter whatsoever. He says he is punting field goal percentage as he has a guard heavy team. So, okay, if you're punting field goal percentage, then that becomes even closer. And yeah, Scoot, I think, is excusable. Or maybe that's not even the right word. A viable option, we'll say, over Keyonte George. But wouldn't really feel bad about streaming that spot either. I mean, we're ultimately talking about 2 rookie guards who tend to be really shaky game to game. Best ad for the rest of the week, asks Jason. Fontecchio, Hendricks, Dort, Giddey, Josh Green, Ben Mathurin, or Norm Powell. Okay, we got a lot of options here.
We do. I have to apologize. I don't know the game count for a lot of these guys.
I have the schedule up. We have a great page over at RotoWire where you can see the breakdown. You can customize, when your league starts and stops in terms of counting games. This week it's a 3-game week for most teams. I think there's only like 12 teams that have a 4-game week. Utah is a team that has a 3-game week. So if you view these all relatively equally, then maybe you could cross out Taylor Hendricks. OKC also has a 3-game week. That applies to Dort and Giddey. Dallas has a 4-game week. Indiana has a 4-game week. And that may be it. The Clippers play 3 games. Detroit also plays 4. So the 4-game guys are Fontecchio, Green, and Mathurin.
So here, well, I'll bring this up for Mathurin. It's worth mentioning anyways. Started 2 straight games with Aaron Nesmith out.
Yeah.
Nesmith is not playing today against Toronto, and Mathurin has had 2 very good games, averaging 15 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Huge for Mathurin, 5 assists and 2 steals. So I might lean on Mathurin by default. If he's got 4 games and we don't know 100% when Nesmith is coming back, that might be my answer.
He also hasn't even shot it that well in those games. He's 5 of 14 in both games, 10 of 28 overall. So I think there's room for improvement there. You look at Fontecchio, he's been pretty good too. I mean, you still worry night to night about the Pistons either getting completely blown off the floor to the point that James Wiseman is playing in the fourth quarter, or the rotations just changing on the whim of Monty Williams. They play on the road at the Knicks and the Bulls the next 2 nights. They're off Wednesday, Thursday. Then they have Cleveland and Orlando. So that's not really they have 4 games, but these are not great matchups. Like, none of these are good fantasy matchups at all. You have like the best defense in the league in Cleveland. You got low scoring, slow paced teams in Orlando and Chicago. Same goes for the Knicks. Fontecchio, I think if you're just looking for points and threes, that's going to be fine. It should be sustainable. But I think you're right. I think Mathurin might be the move here with a 4-game week for Indy. Ian says he needs to drop one for a streaming spot in a 9-cat 16-team league. Should he drop Bruce Brown or Onyeka Okongwu? As we mentioned, Okongwu is injured right now. He's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. So, obviously I like him a lot more than Bruce Brown, but this could also be something that ends up spanning a month. So if you're talking streaming in the immediate future, I think you probably have to drop Okongwu.
Yeah, Kieran and I got a question on Friday about Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown is just not doing anything. He just really isn't. Like, he's 100% droppable in almost every single league. Maybe not 16 teamers. So, but yeah, it is made more difficult by Okongwu's injury. You can honestly just drop both and stream both spots, and you might do better than were to just hang on to both of them. But yeah, 6-16 team league, so that's tough.
Our guy Matt Carmody says Dosunmu and DeAndre Hunter are on waivers. Would you drop Amen Thompson or Alex's favorite player Marvin Bagley to pick up either of those head-to-head points league?
Yeah, I was actually on the Friday pod sort of encouraging people to consider picking up Amen, even though because people had dropped him. Obviously, Fred VanVleet came back, but then Amen played 28 minutes and 33 minutes in back-to-back games. Now only played 21 minutes against OKC last night. So that's a bit concerning, though he still had 2 steals and 3 blocks. Meanwhile, for Bagley, is not seeing as many minutes, consistent minutes as you would hope or want. It's not even really due to foul trouble. There's some blowouts. They're playing they're playing some Omar Rui. They're doing Rashawn Holmes once in a while. Would I drop either of them for Ayo Dosunmu or Hunter? I think I would drop Bagley for Dosunmu. To me, that seems pretty safe.
Yeah, I mean, the Wizards have just gotten completely hammered these last 2 games, so it's almost hard to take those seriously, although that might be the case going forward. I think they're 11-point dogs tonight against the Knicks. Or no, they're not playing the Knicks. I don't know who they're playing, but they're big. Oh, they didn't even play tonight. I'm thinking about the Pistons. So Marvin Bagley, Pistons erasure on my mind. No, I think you're right with Dosunmu, man. I mean, I don't see the minutes really cooling off. I mean, it's almost like the ghost of Tibbs is still coaching this Bulls team. I mean, he's played 39, 39, 33, 41, 39 over the last 4 games. He started now 10 of the last 11. He's averaging 16, 4.5, 3, 1 steal, shooting over 50% from 3 on a pretty high volume of attempts, almost 6 per game in that span. So I would definitely pick up Dosunmu. And yeah, I mean, dropping Amen versus Bagley, to me, that it's a points league. So
yeah,
maybe the defensive numbers from Amen not quite as valuable.
Yeah, I should revise my answer because I neglected to read it was a points league. It's close between Amen and Bagley, but Bagley's way better in a points league relative to a category league. Even though his minutes have fluctuated over the past 5 games, he's averaging 32 fantasy points in 26 minutes. So, you don't have to drop him to add Dosunmu, but I think it's safer to have Dosunmu compared to Bagley, is how I'll phrase that.
Yeah. James asks, Cam Whitmore, Bilal Coulibaly, or Grady Dick for what some have called silly season at the end of the year? Well, I was looking this up the other day, Alex, for the RotoWire NBA show on SiriusXM NBA. Cam Whitmore has a higher usage rate than Paul George this season. So even on nights when he's playing 17 minutes like he did against OKC last night, he's going to be getting shots up. That's not going to be a problem for Cam Whitmore. I don't know if we see Tari Eason again. No timetable for return. That was the note over the weekend. I wouldn't really worry about that anymore. But I think Amen Thompson has been the priority over Cam Whitmore, which again is fine because Whitmore can still give you 25 points in 21 minutes like he did against Toronto a couple weeks ago. I think he would be my guy of these 3. I've just not been in there on Coulibaly all year. Long term, I'm willing to see it through. He's also out right now, dealing with a right pelvis injury. Don't see a whole lot of those. And even the games that he started this season, and we'll take the game against Cleveland out when he got hurt. 7 starts, he's averaging 10 points, 4 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 1 steal, 38% from the field, 24% from 3. I don't really see it with him.
Yeah, Coulibaly, he's gotten he's had a couple good games. He's been in various different roles, right? He started some games, he's come off the bench. Jordan Poole's been in and out of the lineup. It's just Coulibaly never really steps up, I think, in the way people want him to. He hasn't really shown an ability to up his playmaking. He's not a high usage guy. His steals and blocks are good, but they're not elite. So I'm not really a Coulibaly guy, to be honest. I think I'm kind of out on that. Grady Dick, he's just going to be a threes guy. I mean, I know he can do a little bit more than that, but within the context of this roster, I don't think so. So yeah, I'm on Whitmore. Even though the Rockets are the team between these 3 that are least likely to give up. Whitmore, I think, is just going to keep playing 20 minutes a game and keep scoring 15 points.
All right, Nemhard or McConnell as a better pickup in what I hope is a deeper league here. So we're choosing between two Pacers. Nemhard has been a regular starter. Yeah, obviously Aaron Nesmith being out has helped him a little bit in the short term, starting to play closer to 32, 33 minutes a game. And McConnell just kind of living life, just backing up Tyrese Halliburton. It depends how much you need assists to me, but I think I would lean Nemhard.
I would lean Nemhard because the assists are close and Nemhard's getting way more minutes consistently.
Yeah.
But I said if you're in a 16-team league, I mean, Nemhard's probably not available, but McConnell probably is. Like, I think McConnell should 100% be rostered in all 16-team leagues. It's too many assists. It's 5 assists per game. I don't care about how low the minutes are. It's been consistent.
Yeah, I would vote Nemhard here, but no, you're right. You're right. I mean, McConnell, even when he goes out and plays 15 minutes, he's still giving you 5 or 6 assists. Nemhard, by the way, has been piling up steals lately. He's got 8 steals over his last 4 games. So that's something you would normally think more about with McConnell, but he's been pretty decent there. All right, good question here. This will lead us into one of our bigger picture topics. Are the Jazz a potential shutdown team? And should we trade away Lauri Markkanen? We want to touch on some of the biggest shutdown candidates league wide right now. And yeah, the Jazz are interesting, man. This is 2 years in a row with this team where it just kind of feels like the season is waffled back and forth between, are we pushing for a playoff spot? Are we not pushing for a playoff spot? As we've said a number of times, they owe a top 10 protected pick to OKC. So it depends how much they care about that. Really, that's what it comes down to for me.
And they're in 11th in the race for the worst record.
Yes.
They have 27 wins compared to Atlanta's 25, Houston's 25. I think they could theoretically get below both those teams and slide into 9th. Is he a shutdown candidate? Yeah. I mean, I think that's on the table. They've been terrible lately. They had like a weird revival and now they're back to being bad, 4-8 over the past month. Horrible on defense. They bench Walker Kessler again. I would trade Markkanen if you could get comparable value. I think that'd be the safest thing to do. Yeah.
Okay, so outside of Markkanen, are we worried about Walker Kessler? Are we worried about Colin Sexton when it comes to Utah?
I am not that worried about Kessler because I'm not even sure Will Hardy thinks that Kessler is a winning player. Like I don't know what Will Hardy even thinks about Walker Kessler anymore. I think he's young enough and sort of been in and out of the lineup enough where I think he'll just play. Sexton's a little bit of a different story. I could see him getting shut down if they want to do the Talen Horton-Tucker thing again. Bryce Sensabaugh, maybe put him in the rotation. They give Kyra Lewis a shot. I think I'd be more worried about Sexton getting shut down than Kessler.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. In Portland, I think Malcolm Brogdon's the obvious one, right? They're saying he could return anytime now. I would imagine if you gave me over under 0.5 games played, I think he plays again this season, but I think the phantom injury or maybe a real injury is coming for him. I think he's going to be shut down at some point. Do you worry about Simons as somebody who has him in some leagues?
I'm a little worried about Simons. I wouldn't say I'm like panicking about him because I do think it will actually be difficult for Portland to slide into like 3rd worst record. They have 15 wins. San Antonio has 11.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. You just got to be in the bottom 4.
Right. Exactly. So again, if you could trade him and get comparable value for a guy you're confident will play the rest of the year, yeah, do that. But most people in your league are kind of going to understand why you're trying to offload him. So his value is going to be artificially low.
So the Nets as a shutdown team, I'm not super worried about them because like we said earlier, their pick is gone. That's unprotected to Houston. Got a new coach in there, trying to kind of prove himself and maybe keep that job next year. I'm not really worried about Brooklyn. Toronto, Charlotte, those are teams that will come up. The Raptors draft wise, they owe a top 6 protected pick to San Antonio. Again, they're going to have a pretty tough time feeling good about that one not conveying, but they could get close. Memphis has 20 wins. They have 21. They could actually pull this off. So Toronto's a good one. Are we worried about Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, any of their veterans?
I would be a little worried, especially if Memphis, put out an update the other day and they're like, we're still going to try to get Bane and Smart back. That's
okay.
Toronto has to, I don't think they will, to be honest, but Toronto has to be hoping and praying that those guys actually see the floor and push Memphis up the standings. But yeah, I would be worried if I was rostering anybody from Toronto because they are so close to that pick, that protected pick zone. So yeah, again, if you got Barnes, whoever else on that roster, I would look to see if anybody on your team wants them or any of your league wants them.
And I know there's this narrative out here that, this is a bad draft. Teams are already looking ahead to 2025. We go through this exercise like once every few years. A quote unquote bad draft comes up. There will be guys who turn into really good players. It happens in every single draft. There's never a draft where just nobody's good. That's literally never happened in any sport ever. So I'm just not buying that narrative. Like I don't buy like Toronto is like, they're fine just handing over the 7th pick to San Antonio. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. No. You have to take a shot. You never know. Even if you don't necessarily like a guy you lot, there's there are surprises every single year. So it's worth having a shot in the dark.
And you could trade that pick, right? You at least want to be in possession of the pick to do something with it. So yeah, I'm not buying this bad draft thing. There will be, believe me, come late June, we'll be fired up about like 10 different guys. It happens every single cycle. All right, Admiral Nita says, thoughts on Chris Middleton, keep or drop when he comes off of IR. He'd be dropping him to pick up either Keyonte, Paul Reed, or Draymond.
I still really like Middleton as a player. It's just he really can't get healthy, man. It's tough. He's better than all those guys in fantasy when he's healthy and when he's playing 30 minutes. It's not even really close to me. But do you have a strong lean on this?
Well, the way the question is phrased, it's keep or drop when he comes off of IR. It's like if you're going to wait that long for him to come off anyway, you might as well see it through with Middleton, I think, or at least see what they do minutes wise. Like if this turns into another thing where it takes him a month to be back to playing 32 minutes a game, and the Bucks just want him healthy for the playoffs, then it's probably going to be a losing value. Draymond's the interesting one to me. Like we talked about Keyonte George, the pluses, the minuses there. Paul Reed, kind of is what it is. But Draymond's been like a top 50 guy since he came back from the suspension. So that one to me would be interesting if you don't want to play the waiting game with Middleton.
Yeah, Draymond continues to be clearly a top 100 player in fantasy. You mentioned he's averaging 10, 8, and 6 with like 2 steals and blocks combined in February. So, I wouldn't hate the idea of moving off of Middleton to get any of those guys, but I think like Nick said, I just want to see what the Bucks do with Middleton's minutes, because if Middleton's playing 30 minutes, he's going to be better than all those guys.
He also said Tre Mann would be an option to pick up. Does that change the conversation at all?
No, Middleton still projects to be better than Tre Mann. So I just wouldn't do it for him. Like Tre Mann's very good. We don't know about LaMelo. That's not really the point. Tre Mann's averaging 5 assists. So does Middleton when he's healthy. And Middleton's giving you twice as many points. So yeah.
Sticking with that, Jay Sizzle says, I want to drop Tre Mann for Ayo Dosunmu in a 9-cat 10-team head-to-head league. Is this a good move or no? The overall ratings would say that Tre Mann has been a little bit better than Dosunmu. Depending on how far you go out. If you isolate the last 30 days, it would be better to have Dosunmu. Over the last couple of weeks, when Tre Mann has actually been playing real minutes, that becomes a bit more of a debate. But I would take Dosunmu either way here. I think there's still some variability with Tre Mann. It's a terrible team. They're like struggling to get close to scoring 100 points a lot of nights. Like he's leaving assists on the table because nobody can hit shots. And there's still this specter of LaMelo Ball potentially coming back at some point and messing all this up.
Yes. If you want to make the argument either way, I think the debate would what we agree on is they're fairly equal fantasy players right now as things stand. But Dosunmu doesn't have this like negative thing, sort of like this potential dark cloud hanging over him in the future. So yeah, and Mann might be over his head a little bit in terms of like, his steals production, for example, that could come down where I'm more confident, even his efficiency in general. Like this is his best efficiency year by far, taking on an increased role that could cool off. So I'd rather have Dosunmu.
Yeah, I mean, Dosunmu's shooting 50% from the field on the year, not just, since Levine went down or anything like that. I mean, I just think it's going to be a much safer bet. There's going to be nights where you probably regret it, but I think Dosunmu to me is the pretty clear answer. James says, Royce O'Neal, is he worth a roster spot? We mentioned he was picked up in the RotoWire Stake League, 16 teams. I mean, he's just had his best game of the year. So it's a good time to ask this question. 20 points, 10 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block in a win over the Lakers yesterday. He did hit 6 threes in that game. That's not something he's done since late November. The 3-point shooting tends to come and go with him. Phoenix was without Eric Gordon and Bradley Beal. So that's the bigger factor to me.
I think, Beal's an injury risk, and so is Durant. And O'Neal's has been a good fill-in for a lot of his career for guys. He can do a variety. He can pass, he can rebound, he can defense, everything. It's just very, very low usage. I think in a 16-team league, go ahead and pick him up. If you're in a 12-team league, at best, he's a streamer on a 4-game week.
Dennis asks, should I drop Trey Murphy to stream his spot or keep him rostered in a 12-teamer? This is tough. We got to put our Trey Murphy bias aside. I absolutely love Trey Murphy and would love to be rostering him in some of my deeper leagues. It's been a little frustrating, man. I mean, the minutes have been there lately. The shooting has not been there for him. He's gone 3 of 9, 1 of 7, 2 of 10, 3 of 9, 1 of 5 from 3 in his last 5 games. I mean, my fear here is you drop him and then, this upcoming week is when that all reverses.
Right. I was hoping the All-Star break, he'd come out of the All-Star break and he would start shooting better immediately, because he started the year with a meniscus injury, and I think that's affected his efficiency. I would love to hang on to him. I prefer to hang on to him. His defense has actually been great lately. Past 6 games, he has at least 1 steal, 1 block. I think, we talked about at the top of the show, Zion has been very healthy all year. Ingram has been pretty healthy this season. But both of those guys remain significant injury risks. There's no reason they can't get hurt within the next month, one or both of them. And then Trey Murphy, takes an extra 5 to 6 shots a game.
So I'm going to go counter to that and say that I would stream the spot because the Pelicans have 4 3-game weeks in their next 5. They have 1 4-game week, and that is the week of March 18th. So if he's, one of your final starters or, maybe a bench guy some weeks anyway, are you really feeling great about throwing him out there when it's basically nothing but 3-game weeks coming up? Like I think you might be better off just streaming a 4-gamer each week going forward. And by the way, next week, the Brooklyn Nets have 5 games. So if you can grab a net out there for a 5-game week, that would be the way I would lean. But yeah, the schedule's not great for him, coming up for the next month plus.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think this is like a league winning or league losing move. But a lot of people, a lot of people dropped Cam Johnson at some point. If you can stream in Cam Johnson on a 5-game week and drop Trey Murphy, I'm not gonna say that's like a bad decision.
Yeah, I mean, 5-game weeks are extremely rare these days. We used to see a few more of those, when the schedule was a bit more compact. But that's kind of a godsend. Cam Johnson right now, trying to see his roster rate, 76% rostered in Yahoo. So 1 out of 4 leagues, he might be out there for you. All right. Matt says, what are your thoughts on stashing healthy players on IR if you have a bye or playoff spot locked up? Takes away your ability to stream. I mean, in most leagues that I play in, you can't really do this, right? They have to be IR eligible.
No, I think in our ESPN league, you can have a guy hang out in IR if he's healthy. Yeah. He has to have been placed there when he was hurt, but you don't have to activate him until you feel like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what are my thoughts on it? Go ahead, do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is this like a question? Like, do people think it's a bad move? Like it breaks a code or something? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Do it.
I think if you could do it, you do it. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, if that gives you a little bit more flexibility, I mean, you're obviously in a pretty good spot here if you're thinking about doing that. So, no, if anybody gives you any grief in your league, just send them to us and we'll set them straight. George points out that regarding Tre Mann, Charlotte does have a 2-game week in week 20. So that is something to keep an eye on. To be honest, I don't do a whole lot of 4 or 5 weeks out, looking at the schedule. Maybe I have bigger fish to fry in my leagues, which means I have ground to make up. But yeah, if you're sitting in first or second and you have the luxury of time to look into that stuff, absolutely. But I still like that alone to me would not push me in favor of Man over Io. If anything, that's more ammo for the Dosunmu camp.
Right. I think. Well, it's hard. It's hard for us to give blanket advice on, like how many games a team has in a specific week in the future, because late in the year, all of these weeks have different relevance to everybody. Like we could give you advice about like weeks 10 through 15 because it's the same for everybody. But some leagues are going to end like March 15th. Some leagues are going to end April 1st. Some leagues are going to end it. So they all have different weights. So you got to check that on your own. But it's good info.
All right. It's Jordan Goodwin time on the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Pod. Any thoughts on Goodwin now that he has a 2-way deal in Memphis? Yeah, I mean, he didn't play in their last game against the Clippers. I think that was more of a contractual issue. And then obviously the next day they signed him to that 2-way. So I think that was, it's not like he just got dropped from the rotation. Memphis is such a mess. If you're in a deeper league, I think he's worth looking into. I mean, he played 2 pretty good games back to back. One he started, when he came off the bench. The one he started was that disaster game for the Bucks before the break, by the way. But yeah, I mean, in addition to all the usuals who are out for Memphis, like John Conchar is banged up now. He's not going to play tonight. I think part of this comes down to like, do we actually believe the Grizzlies that, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, they're going to be back out there when healthy?
I don't really believe them. I just my own personal, the way I treat it, I just act like they're not coming back. And there's only so much like debate you can do in your own head about like, are these guys coming back? Is this a lie? So I just act like they aren't because I think it would be stupid. As far as like Goodwin, yeah, he signed a 2-way deal, but it's so late in the year that I think he is basically going to be eligible to play the rest of the year with the parent squad. What do we think about him? I really like him. I mean, last year with Washington, I mean, you may have had to be a little deep in the weeds in fantasy, but he was actually ranked 89th per minute in fantasy last year with the Wizards. Had some really good streaming weeks with Bradley Beal out, I think it was. And, he's like basically for his career per 36, he's been like, 13 points, 5 assists, 1.5 steals. That's great. You get some blocks as well. And I think he could see increase the most usage of his career in this role. Is he going to play 36 minutes? Probably not, but pick him up.
Here's a good question and kind of ties into what we're talking about with Bane. Torrey Thompson says, I'm number 1 in my league with a cushion, 10-teamer. Someone dropped Desmond Bane. Would you claim him and stash him on IR, or is it even worth it? It depends who your last guy is, I guess, to me. If you, I don't know, let's say you have like Onyeka Okongwu and now you don't know what's going on with him, then yeah, I mean, if you're number 1 with a cushion and you're not dropping somebody of real consequence, which in a 10-team league you probably are, I would think about it. I mean, if you're number 1 and adding Desmond Bane basically makes you invincible and he comes back, it's certainly something to consider, but I don't know if we could bank on it. This feels 50-50 at best. And even if he comes back, is he playing all the way through game 82? Is he playing a full minutes load? To me, it 100% comes down to who you're dropping.
If you don't have to drop anybody, if you're picking him up, I mean, some leagues are going to be different. Some leagues you're not going to be able to pick a guy up and put him immediately in your IR. You have to pick a guy up, you have him on your bench, and then you have to insert him into the IR. But yeah, like Nick said, if you're not dropping anybody of consequence, if your whole bench is healthy, you're not going to have any issues starting anybody. Yeah, I have no issues with that move.
Yeah, I should clarify. It's a good point. I mean, if you could just grab him and put him directly into IR and you have nobody else there, then yeah, I don't see any downside to doing that. But yeah, if you have to pick him up, drop somebody to in order for the transaction to go through in a 10-team league, that becomes a little dicey. Anything deeper than that, yeah, I think it's worth the risk. All right, Dennis says Grayson Allen or Cameron Johnson in a 12-teamer. Worried about Cam's low minutes. Fair concern. I mean, if you're just tuning in, we did mention Brooklyn has a 5-game week coming up. So that would be the week to roster or even stream Cam Johnson. In general, though, I think I'd rather have Grayson Allen.
In general, I would rather have Grayson Allen. I mean, there's a chance that you can get best of both worlds streaming Cam Johnson. Is it next week that they have the 5 games? Or 2 weeks from now?
Yes, I believe so. I think it's next week.
Okay. Stream him in. streaming Cam Johnson next week for 5 games, drop him, and then pick up Grayson Allen. I think this is like the ideal move. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. Grayson Allen's better long term.
Galaxy Brain waiver wire. We love it. Yeah. Tori says, I'm going to drop Bojan anyway because he's full. Not much of a risk, but I'd hate to not be able to use the IR slots in case I need them. You know, I would say unless your league has some weird IR settings, like if you need them, then you just drop Bane, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't in a 10-team league. Bogdanovich at this point is he's a streamer. He's not really anybody of consequence. Yeah.
Okay. Another Bane related question: would you drop Malcolm Brogdon for Bane? So basically a swap of IL spots.
I don't think I would actually. I think Brogdon has a better chance of coming back this season sooner than Bane. And I think we don't want to get necessarily obsessed or not obsessed. We don't want to lock into the idea that Bane's going to come back and play like 35 minutes a game and take like 25 shots. It's possible Bane comes back the last 2 weeks of the year, plays like 18 to 25 minutes a game. It's just out there running around, like trying not to get hurt. And then he's basically as good as anybody else you could have off the waiver wire.
All right, last one here from Jason, getting it in under the gun. He said, should I make a trade here? My 9-team category league team is Murray, Capella, Keegan Murray. Oh, wait. I think all right, we got to start over here. Clint Capella, Murray, Jamal Murray, Tyler Hero, Ben Mathurin, Brook Lopez, Kristaps Porzingis. I don't know, might have a copy and paste issue here. But he's saying, should I make a trade? Basically. Really hard to say based on, just looking at a roster. You're, I guess, a little bit guard heavy, but then you got, Capella, Lopez, and Porzingis.
You have no wings.
Yeah, really. If anything, yeah, you might have trouble finding some forward eligibility.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a trade to make, I think you probably want to make a trade for a forward who gets some steals, maybe. I don't think you're getting any steals production from your guys, so that would just very, very quick reaction on that. Yeah.
All right, final one. We'll talk a Brooklyn Nets question: DFS or Sharp, Day'Ron Sharp, and he's saying over Derek Lively in a 10-team 9-cat league. So we'll rope in the Lively part of this as well, because that is interesting. With the additions that they made at the deadline. So basically, Finney-Smith, Sharp, or Derek Lively.
I don't need to. We don't need to be rostering Finney-Smith. I don't think. No. Lively hasn't played 20 minutes since he returned from his nose injury, and Gafford's been there, so that's obviously a concern. That's usually where Sharp hangs around too. He's been playing in like the 10 to 15 minute range lately, but I think Sharp is a better per minute producer than Lively. The question is Sharp even gonna Sharp's minutes have been up and down all year. If you need the pure upside, I actually think Sharp is the move. I would add Sharp if you just need a bunch of upside. But if you're in a fine spot and you want to play it safe, I think I would just keep Lively.
Yeah, you're in a 10-team league, right? So I feel like there should be better options out there, right? Than any of these guys. I mean, I wouldn't feel good about picking these guys up in like a 14-team league.
But is this for the 5-game week?
Oh, right. Okay, good question. It's like, all right, this makes significantly more sense.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to go with one of the Nets then, and yeah, I think in that case, then Sharp. I would go Sharp. I'm just not fired up about what we've seen from Finney-Smith. All right, guys, great questions as always. Covered a lot of ground here. Appreciate everybody chiming in the chat. This will be archived on YouTube. We'll throw the timestamps in there. You can click through, listen to whatever you want. Please subscribe to the channel, follow us over at RotoWire NBA. Follow the @RotoWire account as well. You can follow me at WHA1EN. You can follow Barutha at Barutha Alex. You can now see it on the screen. For some reason, that was not there the entire time. But we appreciate everybody listening, watching along the season. These have been super fun. We'll have Dr. A, Steve Alexander, on the pod tomorrow. I'll be back with Brandon Kravitz on Wednesday. We'll have Rick Kamla joining Dr. A Thursday, and then Alex will be doing the waiver wire episode on Friday. Are we getting the fellows back together? Are Ken and Shannon back in the mix this week?
I believe so. I believe they're back.